the Sports Betting Network.
Follow the money. That's what I always say. You always follow the money. Yeah.
This is Follow the Money with Mitch Moss and Paulie Howard on VSiN.
What up, folks? Happy Thanksgiving and welcome in. It is Follow the Money. Mitch and Paul off for the holiday. They'll be back on Monday. Me and Will Hill here with you for the next 3 hours leading into VSiN primetime. And throughout the course of this matchup here in the National Football League, which is where we begin, Will. It is exactly what a lot of us expected, I think, except for me. 3-3, 2nd and 3 right now for the Las Vegas Raiders. 7:04 left to go and rolling in the second quarter, but a ugly, low-scoring, and slow-plotting affair between two AFC West rivals, mirroring the matchup we saw last year on Christmas.
Yeah, it does feel like a little bit similar to that game just because low-scoring nature. It's a holiday. We're all home. We're all watching it. And I think we're all starting to resurface with the same questions about the Chiefs. Like, man, if the Chiefs weren't the Chiefs, if they hadn't won 2 straight titles, if we just put different uniforms and different names on them, none of us would be, like, scared of this team, threatened by this team. But they have done that, so they've earned that respect. They've earned that benefit of the doubt. But, man, this team has not looked like the Kansas City Chiefs we expect that we know in a while, really all year. I mean, tough game with Carolina. They lost to Buffalo. Even their wins haven't been impressive. Should have lost to Denver. So it's been a while since this team has looked like themselves.
Yeah, and look, Brad Powers, I'll steal a line from him because he talks about this in the big picture with teams, but you change one play, you change one result and how you view a team. I'll change one play just here in this game alone. I think it was the second drive in the first quarter for the Chiefs where was it Gray who was deep in the left side. Mahomes tries to find him, hits off of his hands. It was a difficult catch to make, but if he catches that, who knows what happens? You go down, you score a touchdown. Maybe you're up 7-10, maybe you're up 10-3 as opposed to 7-3 or 3-3, and who knows what happens from there. But regardless, the point is this offense continues to just kind of scuffle along and depend on its defense. And frankly, with how bad this Raiders team has been over the last few weeks, well, I mean, power rating wise, this is among the lowest power rated teams in the NFL at this point right now. And yet here you are in a 3-3 tie deep into the second quarter.
If the Raiders do the unthinkable, win this game, it'll be just, hey, Aiden O'Connell knows how to win. He knows how to beat the Chiefs.
Yes, even though, as we all remember last year, he sliced and diced them for a grand total of 63 yards through the air.
Yeah, exactly. So, but look, somebody will say it out there as he's almost intercepted on a 3rd and 4. So 4th and 4, kind of in no man's land for the usually very conservative Pierce and the Raiders. We'll see what they do here on 4th down.
Yeah, I mean, you would think too with them in terms of play calling, you have nothing left to lose, right? I mean, you're a 2-win team right now, and I don't think your job is necessarily on the line, but that's only because your owner doesn't want to pay another contract. It's not so much he has faith in you. And a reminder, too, again, as you told me when I disgustingly said that I was on the Kansas City Chiefs here, plenty of game left, but it is 3-3 in a game in which 29 entries were on the Kansas City Chiefs for Circa Survivor. So that is also going to be something we'll monitor here.
And they are kicking here from 56. The kick is up, and it looks like it's straight enough. Does it have the distance? And it is short. Boy, you don't see that too much. These kickers, it seems like they can kick it from 70, 75 if they needed to. But Carlson, who's a good kicker, comes up short. So the Chiefs going to take over with good field position here. Were you okay with the decision to kick?
Well, here's the thing. I haven't seen the kick yet. You're way ahead of me. What's going on here? We got to work on this lag at this point right now. I actually just watched Aiden O'Connell barreling this on the interception. No, look, 4th and 4, the way this game's playing, you trust your kicker. He's actually pretty good from this relative distance. I guess I kind of understand it. I mean, I'm always of the mindset, though, like, if you're a 2-9 team in this position, I would generally just always kind of lean toward going for it if you're in enemy territory. What do you have left to lose?
Yeah, I agree with like the conclusion of yours. I disagree with the first part of the to me the right decision is the right decision. Like the right decision to go for it. You're 9-2, 2-9. I still think the right decision is probably to go for it regardless of the record. But I agree, probably going for it.
Sure.
Look, you're outdoors. Weather's a factor now. 56. Boy, that Carlson. I can remember a bunch of times you remember that game where if they both teams tied, the Raiders and the Chargers. They were both in the playoffs. I had Ty at a huge number, and he hit one at the end of overtime. So, man, that guy can never seem to miss one when I need him to miss one, but he does miss one here. I am on the Raiders, by the way, plus 14, minus $1.20. It got to 13.5. I said, you know what? Let me shop around. I got a 14 minus 20. I thought that was a good number. So far from safe, and Chiefs are set up here on a relatively short field, or at least close to midfield. But like I said, a long way to go. But at least I'm on the right side of things as of now.
Yeah, not me. Come on, buddy. No. All right, in-game number right now, 8.5 over at DraftKings. Total down to 33.5. Your pre-flop total here was 42.5 and actually moved down from the open to 44. So trending toward the under at this point right now, and obviously trending, as Will mentioned, in the Raiders' direction. Would you see this opening up at this point right now? Before we move off this topic, 33.5, a pretty low number. Do we expect more from both of these teams? Some pretty long drives from both squads up to this point that we have seen. The Chiefs opened up with a 13-play, 66-yard drive that ate up 5 minutes, and then a short drive after that. But 9 plays for the Chiefs ate up 4 minutes. That field goal drive prior to this was a 6-minute and 20-yard drive for the Raiders. Are we going to see some more scoring and maybe some shorter drives here, a little bit more explosiveness, or is this thing going to be a dead under?
I'd probably prefer the over to the under, but nothing I'm going to pause the show for and try to bet. How about you? Is anything? If you have a lean one way or the other, and it's the second question, which I think sometimes I don't do a good enough job of differentiating. If I had to bet it, this is what I do, and hey, this is actually worth a bet. I don't think anything's actually worth a bet. How do you feel?
I mean, I would say the one thing that sticks out to me when you've watched this and what you see from the numbers is that surprisingly the Raiders are averaging about 6.6 yards per play. That's generally a pretty good indicator that you as a team are going to be able to do something here as you move forward. But again, it's on a short sample size at this point. I think that I would lean toward going over, right? That would be the general thought, only because we tend to see these teams pick up the pace, whether it's in these second halves. It is, I think, pretty rare where you see a game go wire to wire at a similar pace. That's why you see these second half plays get made. We'll see what the second half total is when we get it. I'd be willing to bet that we'll probably see a small move toward the over, considering what we see here at the end of this first half, but we'd lean a little bit toward an end game over, just considering that we've seen the Chiefs generate some open looks downfield and the Raiders are averaging a pretty good yard per play clip.
Plus, with the Chiefs set up in good field position, and if they do score, usually you do get a score, and most books have this prop. Will there be a score in the last 2 minutes of the first half? The yes is always a huge, huge favorite. Now, how big, depending on which teams. If it's Giant Cowboys and the total's lower, it's not going to be. But if you watch enough NFL games and you pay attention to it, we do usually get points towards the end of the second quarter, because teams are in the 2-minute drill, and if they don't score, they give it back, and somebody goes into 2-minute mode and gets into field goal range. So usually, if you think the Chiefs are going to score, then maybe the Raiders have enough time to get a field goal. So it would be a lean towards the over. It doesn't sound like you're dying to bet this, right?
Yeah, and like you mentioned, I mean, you already saw this because you're way ahead of me. But immediately right there, that first play, you're inside the Raiders 30. So you're getting a junk play. Yeah. Patrick Mahomes moving the ball around, and it looks like you're able to generate some offense too. So like I said, the looks have been there. You would think at least a better pace than 33.5, but we'll see if that's the case. All right, so 4:55 left to go in the second quarter. We'll wait for action to develop there. Keep our eye on it. But, Will, we did get news today in the National Football League. Of course, if you've been under a rock, it's all anybody's been talking about. The Chicago Bears lose in dramatic fashion yesterday, and pretty egregious failure at the end of that game. Now, who it lies on is the real question, but regardless, Matt Eberflus, after media availability today, ends up getting fired. I know you were on earlier today, so what's the general thought with Eberflus on the way out?
I talked about this morning on my podcast. Sometimes something's so stupid you don't even have anything to add to it. It's just so obvious. It's so dumb. It feels like you're piling on and there's nothing to say. I compared it to somebody just taking a huge stack of $100 bills, lighting it on fire, then asking me to react to that person like what they did. What am I supposed to say beyond it's the dumbest thing I've ever seen? It was ridiculous. He deserved to be fired. I think the bigger, and it reminded me a lot, I was trying to think of anything that compared to this. I couldn't really think of anything in the NFL. It reminded me a little bit of J.R. Smith, remember in the finals when they were tied. He thought they were up by one, and he dribbled out the clock in game one of the 2018 finals. I actually think the bigger takeaway, and I preface this with saying Eberflus is going to be fired. He's never going to be head coach again. He's basically out of our lives as better, so he's not the story. Caleb Williams, we would think, is going to be a quarterback in this league for a decade plus. For him not to know better, for him to say after the game, you guys are just playing the results. It's easy to say when you can hit the pause button. I need much more awareness from my franchise quarterback. I mean, we do all these tests before the draft and these Wonderlic and all this. I mean, how about having some instinct, some awareness for the sport? So to me, you downgrade Caleb Williams big time. Eberflus is gone. He deserves to be gone. I'm still shocked at what we saw.
Yeah, so I think you're absolutely right on, which is I think a lot of people, and you saw a lot of the discourse around this, being that he got fired for the end of the game. I don't think that's the case. I think the ultimate result is that he's going to be fired no matter what. This team, I think the more egregious coaching misstep in his career up to this point is kind of saying, actually, no, he flat out said it, that the player prior to the Hail Mary that lost in the game against Washington did not matter, right? Those things I think are egregious.
Stupid.
But you hit the nail on the head for me, which is the more you watch that and you saw that, a lot of people were like, why did you call the timeout? Why'd you save the timeout? No, it's about Caleb Williams in that scenario realizing down distance and game situation and where you're at as a quarterback, knowing that you have a timeout in your pocket. Not changing the play at the line of scrimmage for a deep shot when you can still work the middle of the field and get a timeout off. I thought the execution at the end of that game is what was abysmal. And a lot of it, I thought, fell on the shoulder of Caleb Williams. Like, I don't know. I thought a lot of people were quick and easy, to your point, about just wanting to pile on Eberflus because it's fun and everybody thinks that he's a moron and that he's bad at his job and all that kind of stuff. I think it really ignored what was a massive mistake by a kid who's supposed to be your franchise quarterback. And quarterbacks are supposed to know those things. You're supposed to understand that you have a timeout. You're supposed to understand that it's 3rd and 26, that you can still take a shot in the middle of the field and call a timeout, that you didn't need to change the line of the play at the line of scrimmage, that you were putting it on their shoulders. And in fact, we're going to hear from Eberflus on the other side, but a lot of people killed him for his explanation. I actually thought his explanation made sense.
And earlier in the drive, Caleb Williams on his own calls a timeout because he's trying to avoid a delay game on his own 3. That's a 1.5-yard penalty. With 2 minutes to go, you're trailing. The timeout is much more important than the 1.5 yards. Just horrible, awareness, football IQ. It's really on Caleb. And again, Eberflus, he's gone. He's going to be a DC. As bettors, as football fans, he's irrelevant to us pretty much going forward. Caleb Williams is the one that, to me, that's the story. He's in our lives for a long time.
Yep. All right. Well, the Chiefs got a drive going right now. They are in the red zone, coming up with a 3rd down inside the 10-yard line, but not a goal-to-go situation yet. So about a 3rd and 4 coming up for the Kansas City Chiefs. We'll see if they can get something out of this drive after a missed field goal in the previous drive for the Las Vegas Raiders. We'll hear from Eberflus the explanation for what happened yesterday and recap of Thanksgiving Day, in which we saw a tiny bit of history. We'll tell you what that is when we come back here on Follow the Money.
Time. There's nothing more valuable. It's what drives everyone to make the most of every moment. We celebrate living large in the now. In a city where time disappears, we create experiences that electrify the soul and memories that will last forever. We go big, we go all night, and here, everyone is invited. So get loose and get loud.
This is Circa. You'll have the time of your life.
Happy Thanksgiving. No show on Thursday. It's John Von Tobel and Will Hill on Black Friday. Have a good one. Enjoy your food. We're back Monday with Mitch Moss and Paulie Howard. Follow the Money weekdays, 4 to 7 Eastern, VSiN, Esports Betting Network.
Want to see who at VSiN is on a hot streak? Go to VSiN.com/picks to see all the selections and weekly leaderboard of VSiN hosts, writers, and guests. Become a VSiN Pro subscriber and get every pick sent to your inbox daily. Just head to VSiN.com/pro.
So, Paulie, have you had a chance to read the VSiN Daily yet?
Yeah, came in at 3 a.m. What's Bill doing up that late?
Well, rumor has it, it starts off with a 12-hour meditation session.
Then he just pours himself over film and live TV, really focusing and taking it all in. Bill's in with the biggest insiders, talking trade secrets, strategies, the whole nine, absorbing the info.
And then and only then can the writing process begin.
In Las Vegas, Bill's late night becomes your early morning. Wake up to the very latest betting insights in your inbox with the VSiN Daily. Sign up for free at vsin.com/newsletter.
This is Follow the Money on VSiN.
7 plays at 53 yards and 3 minutes 41 off the clock. The Kansas City Chiefs have a touchdown and a 10-3 lead over the Las Vegas Raiders, courtesy of a touchdown pass to Justin Watson from one Patrick Mahomes. 10-3 is the score. We're at the 2-minute warning. 12.5 is the spread in favor of Kansas City. Total back up to 35.5. So sort of 33.5 was the low watermark that we've seen so far in game. We'll keep our eye on that and where this game ultimately hits. But this is kind of what we were talking about, Will, right? And Will Hill's here. I'm Jonathan Von Tobler, filling in for Mitch and Paul today, courtesy of the holidays on a Black Friday. We will get to the festivities on Black Friday because after this, I'm going to go shopping and I'm going to go get a new TV somewhere. But with this and what we saw, that's what you needed. Quick scoring drive, specifically ending in a touchdown, but generating some pretty big plays. The Chiefs have shown a couple of times that they can generate those. It's the first drive where it actually ended in pay dirt. We'll see if they can continue to do it. But the thought of 33.5 being a little bit low, well, at the point right now, we're at least trending toward going over that low water mark of 33.5.
And did you get a good look at that touchdown pass? Oh, my goodness. What a throw. They showed an overhead angle. I mean, there was very little space to fit that ball. Perfect, trajectory, perfect arc, just perfect placement of the ball. Our buddy Michael Lombardi always says the good quarterbacks can hit the door. The great quarterbacks can throw it through the keyhole or doorknob, keyhole. I forget the expression, but that was a keyhole throw. That was just an incredible placement of that pass.
It's like do you remember the old fantasy commercials on NFL Network?
Which ones?
Like they were due. I think they were fake, but it was like football players just doing ridiculous things. Like the former Redskins tight end, is it Chris Cooley, where he was at a construction site and he was telling him to throw it through plywood. He would punch through the plywood and catch the ball without being able to see it. Like things like that. Mark Bolger had a couple of them. Yeah, throws like that.
NFL Network used to have really good commercials.
Yeah. So Mahomes throws like that, I think is what Lombardi's referring to.
Yeah, an incredible throw.
All right, so right now, again, in-game number 12.5, total 35.5. Let's get back to what we're talking about here. Again, story of the day is that Matt Eberflus is on his way out. By the way, I was looking up some odds on I think it was the 26th to the 27th, at least it was dated that I found. He was plus 450 to be the next coach fired. So somewhere in that realm, Eberflus, and he is indeed going to be that next coach. We'll see if we get updated odds from there. We still have quite a few weeks left of the season. I know we're near the tail end, but we still have quite a few weeks, and another guy could go down at some point. But
Who
Eberflus,
had those, by the way?
There's a couple spots, bet online.
Sure?
I'm thinking of, a couple of other spots offline. So
I think those are super micro limits. I know that's a popular one before the season. Hey, first coach fired, and we sit here when we need content, and you spend all summer trying to handicap who could be fired first. I don't see those too much. Again, I don't search them out. If I came across, it'd be interesting. But I don't see next coach fired that much. And if you're sitting there with a Doug Peterson next coach fired ticket, what do I have to do to get this guy fired?
We got to invoke him because it's his show. But somewhere, Paulie Howard is cursing because I think every week he comes on here and is like, how is Doug Peterson not fired yet? So he's probably upset about something at this point right now. I used to have a dynamite Paulie Howard impression, but I forgot how to do it. So, but regardless,
what do you mean you forget? How do you forget how to do an impression? That was pretty good.
I haven't done it for a really long time, and I don't want to do it. I used to be really good at impressions.
Just quickly on the Jags, Brandon Anderson, I don't know if you're familiar with him. Action Network, he comes on this network a lot. Really sharp better, and he's not afraid to take some long shots. He was one of the first guys on Flacco last year, comeback player. I think he got him 250 to 1. He threw this out there on Twitter. Jags 500 to 1, I think he got to win the division. And his thought process is the Texans aren't any good. If the Jags could ever win this week, the rest of their schedule is easy again. I mean, it's 500 to 1. It's 500 to 1 for a reason. I think the number moved I saw 100 to 1, 120 to 1 some spots. So just throwing it out there, I thought that was interesting. At first, I was like, that's just the dumbest bet ever, which he admit, hey, this is the dumbest bet I'll ever make. But hey, at 500 to 1, you're trying to poke a hole through the Texans, which I've been trying to find somebody like that can Indy step up and steal that division. I know that would make you happy. I think the Texans are vulnerable, and I thought that was interesting. Anyone that has one of those, those boosts or profit bets or whatever that's $10 max, $20 max. If you find some huge long shit on the Jags, maybe that's a fun one to take a shot on.
Patriots, Broncos, Titans, Giants, Jags. That is the remaining schedule for the Indianapolis Colts. It is doable. The problem is they are 0-2 against the Texans so far this year. So you're going to have to not only make it up.
They played the Texans this week, right?
No, the Colts, they're done. They've already played 2. They've lost both of them.
Oh, yeah. No, I was thinking Jags.
Jags
have an easy schedule, too. But
yep, Jags have it left. So
crazy talk.
Right, we just money line and roll it over, too. You could do that because, you're essentially going to need that. But regardless, as we watch this now, we're watching the rest of the season play out, and the NFC North has been incredible. And now the NFC North gets a little bit more interesting because Eberflus is out. And I wanted to play this because I thought this was pretty interesting from his press conference yesterday. This was post-game where he's asked Eberflus about, hey, why did you not call a timeout when the clock was running? And it gives you some insight onto what was happening there. Let's take a listen.
Yeah, so right there, we liked the play that we had, and we were hoping that he was going to call it or get the ball snapped, and then we would have called timeout right there. But once it's under 7 there, then you call timeout there, then you're basically throwing the ball to the end zone because once it's under 12, you can't throw it inside with no timeout. And it was 3rd going into 4th, so that's a big deal. So it was 3rd going into 4th. That's why I wanted to preserve the timeout. So
you hear him there. He says it. We were hoping he, being Caleb Williams, would snap it. The thought process is that you have the play called, and as he kept saying in the postgame press conference, you re-rack it or you get to the line, you call the play, and then you snap it. And then if you can get it and you get a completion in the field of play because we have the timeout, we call that timeout, and then we kick a field goal because it's a shorter field goal from the point of where it's at. Ultimately, didn't happen. Now, I wanted to play one more here because he was asked, and this is kind of what caught a lot of people and a lot of people were hanging on to. He was asked if, in retrospect, would you have handled the play differently? Here's what he said.
Yeah, I like what we did there. Again, once it's under 7, you're gonna call timeout there, or actually under 12, and then really you don't have an option. Because it's 3rd to 4th, you got to throw it into the end zone then. So to me, it's I think we handled it the right way. I do believe that, you just re-rack the play, get it in bounce, and call timeout, and that's why we held it, and didn't work out the way we wanted it to.
I'm going to say this. I'm kind of proud of Matt Eberflus. He's kind of standing on business there. He's saying it without saying it. We set it up for him. He didn't execute it. Yeah. I don't know what else you want him to do. Again, I think Eberflus deserved to get fired for a litany of other reasons, and I don't think he was a very good head coach. But in this instance, I think people have to think just like a little bit deeper beyond, hey, I think this guy's an idiot, let's pile on, and realize the execution at the end of that really falls onto the shoulders of a guy who, like you mentioned, which was brilliant, you can't afterwards, if you're Caleb Williams, say, look, man, I'm just here to make plays for the Chicago Bears, and then whatever happens, it's up to them. But then earlier in the drive, you called the timeout of your own accord. You can't do those things.
Yeah, I mean, I thought Eberflus. I thought his challenge in the first quarter was ridiculous. I don't want to defend Eberflus too much, and that's one. And people don't. That's an easy press conference to just say, "Hey, I'm the head coach. I'm responsible. We botched it. I botched it. Move on." So I think people just wanted more accountability there. And trying to think back, when did the body hit the ground? Was it 36 seconds, 32 seconds? You can't run out of time. I know Caleb botched it, but it's somebody at 18, 16, 12 seconds is all right, enough. Similar to the J.R. Smith with the Cavs, where at some point you have to realize what J.R. Smith is doing is Tyronn Lue, hey, call timeout. Like so much time elapsed. It's just impossible that happened.
The really problem in that scenario, though, is again, because you're looking at 4th down being that next play, is that like if you complete it in the field of play within, let's say, 12 seconds, 16 seconds, you have to run your field goal unit out there and execute a field goal, which is why you do get to a point of no return, which is why, again, like this is on the quarterback of like, bro, know what the play is, know what the situation is, know what we have to do here. That's on you because at some point you've also got to execute. And again, I go back to you can't point the finger if you're him and go, well, I leave the management to them. Well, then why didn't you take a delay a game when it was, as you astutely pointed out, 3rd and 7 on your own 4? That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I think it was even closer to the 3. It was like a 1.5 penalty. Those timeouts are gold in the second half. I wanted, once you botched it and once it got to a certain point, I actually thought the better play, call the timeout, try to kick it from 58. I know you don't have a good kicker. They don't trust their kicker, but you're in a dome. Most of these guys can kick it from 57, 58. And you know what? To me, that's better than almost like a mini Hail Mary at that point. Would you agree or no?
So I would say that one more time for me.
I would have just, once it got to the point where, we screwed this up, we got caught in between, and we didn't run the play in time, I thought the right play was just call timeout and then kick the field goal from 58. Even though you don't trust the kicker, it's 58, it's indoors. Most guys, I mean, we watch these guys kick all the time indoors. These guys kick it from basically midfield. I thought the field goal was the right play once you botched it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think so. I think you already hit it. I don't think you have a guy you trust. I'd rather try to get as close as possible. Now, you can try to run a play out of bounds, do all that sort of stuff, but I think, again,
Hail Mary, though. Hail Mary's so tough.
Of course. I mean, look, at the end of the day, when you look at this, I will very much reiterate, he deserved to get fired. I don't think he deserved to get fired for something like this, but you deserve to get fired. Yes, you watching and listening. If you don't check out our Black Friday special, it is sweet. Check it out now. Go to VSiN.com/subscribe. You can see all the options. We are offering everything that we do up until May for just $60. How about that? So check it all out now. Go to VSiN.com/subscribe. You get everything that we have to offer, the expert picks for every sport, the top VSiN expert leaderboard, exclusive betting splits, and more. It's a limited time offer. $60 VSiN Pro access until May 1st. It's my dad's birthday. Go to VSiN.com/subscribe for this limited time Black Friday offer. All right, under 40 seconds left to go here in the first half. Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs have a 2nd and 15 after a negative play. We'll see if they can get into scoring range. They've got a timeout in their pocket, and Patrick Mahomes has done crazier things. On the other side, we'll take a look around at what's going on. College football, we have plenty of games going on. I've got some action in, and just like that, a big play downfield. How about it? It's Patrick Mahomes on the move once more. It's Follow the Money here on VSiN.
You spoke, we listened. Introducing the all-new VSiN Watch app. Now, you can watch and listen to VSiN expert analysis live wherever you are. Missed a show? No problem. Catch replays of VSiN's full lineup at any time. View highlights sorted by sport. Or use the search feature to find specific teams and topics you're looking for. And the best part? It's free for a limited time. Download the VSiN Watch app today. Available now on the App Store and Google Play. And join us on the Sports Betting Network.
This is VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
This is Follow the Money on VSiN.
No Mitch and Paul, John Von Tobel and Will Hill are here with you until 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern. Matt Humans will take you there from VSiN Primetime in the Circa Friday Football Invitational. As, of course, we are well beyond cut week. It is cut week every week, so we are whittling it down every single weekend, and Matt will have the updates and standings and picks for you coming up at 7 p.m. Eastern. All right, let's look at the second half really quickly. Las Vegas Raiders currently trailing the Kansas City Chiefs 10-3. Numbers pretty much holding up across the board. We're at a new low for the total, though. We've seen a couple of missed kicks from long distance. 12.5 is the spread, Will. Total's now down to 32.5. Again, by my measure, that is the lowest in-game total we've seen. But, haven't been keeping track of every second of it, but believe that's the lowest point we've seen outside of that 33.5, and obviously 32.5 lower than 33. But what do we make of this now? The Chiefs leading 10-3, missed the kick there at the break, and the Raiders will get the ball here to start the second half.
Feels like it's a big drive for the Raiders. And these first few minutes of a half, and this goes to basketball too, first few minutes of a half always seems super important to just kind of set the tone in terms of where the game's going to go. If the Raiders go 3 and out, feels like the Chiefs on the verge of either getting a field goal, getting a touchdown. And man, do you really trust the Raiders to catch up from 2 scores? Probably not. It'd be Chiefs or nothing. There's some 11.5, some 12.5s live, so 5.5. 5.5 and 6.5 in terms of 5.5 and 4.5 in terms of the second half spread. Lean towards the Chiefs. Total feels about right. If you had to make a bet either side, where would you go?
Yeah, I think I would agree with you on the perspective of leaning toward the Chiefs. I think the one thing that really sticks out to you is on the surface, the Raiders are running the ball relatively well. 5.3 yards per carry, 58 yards on 11 carries. Problem is, a lot of those are coming from 2 big runs. 17-yard run from McCormick, 11-yard rush from Trey Tucker, and really outside of that, they haven't done anything, and this has kind of generated a good chunk of their offense up to this point. If you're going to revert back to one of the worst rush offenses in the National Football League, which we know they are at this point, then I think that you're going to become one-dimensional, and that's not really great for Aiden O'Connell in this offense at this point right now. So would think that that's going to be the case. Raiders, by the way, dead last by almost a historic margin in terms of EPA per rush, and I think that is probably going to settle itself out here in the second half. So I would agree. To me, it would be Chiefs or nothing here for the second half overall. And for the total, no real read. Like I said, 33.5 felt low. It got up there a little bit, but a pair of missed kicks, and here we are still sitting at 10-3 here at the break between these two. Also do have the contest play on this one in the Super Contest. So split the 2 legs yesterday and hoping for a 2-1 start heading into Sunday. That was fun watching. It was one of those where I felt like I was going to regret it. Had Bears and Giants yesterday, and man, oh man, I knew I was going to regret it. At least I split them, but holy smokes, the Giants felt like I deserved a slightly better fate, but not to the point where I'm really going to bellyache too much about it from yesterday.
Yeah, and the Bears game was weird too, because if you laid the points with the Lions, everyone's focusing on the end of the game, and rightfully so. It was so bizarre. But I mean, there was a point that game probably should have been 31-0 Lions at half. Yes. I had the Bears too, and I didn't even enter my mind that they could cover, forget win. Even at 16-0, I was like, yeah, Lions are letting them hang around, but who cares? I mean, it's just a matter of window dressing at this point. And then if you're watching the game with your family or your friends or whatever, and you're just kind of half paying attention, you could have. I'm sure there were plenty of people like this too, where this game's over. Go have a drink, go have some appetizers or whatever, and you turn your head around and say, "Wait a second, the Bears are down 3 with the ball. What the hell happened?" Really strange game. By the way, do you take anything from the Lions' second half? Is this this is a chink in the armor, this is a flaw, this is something to look for going forward in terms of a weakness, or you know what? It's the NFL. Things got weird. They kind of played with their food a little bit. What's your viewpoint on that?
No, excuse me. I don't think take anything serious away from it. I think to your point too. Look, it's a divisional game. You've got this really long losing streak that you're sitting on. You get a little tight for the most part, and you look pretty good. Like you said, it should probably the margin was probably a little bit wider than what you really ultimately got. You had the fumble at the end of the first half. You were the Lions. I think you had a missed field goal as well, somewhere mixed in there too.
Yes.
There's some opportunities that they dropped. I wasn't watching that and going I think I'm a little worried here. I think you felt that more in that Sunday night game against the Texans, where you're watching Jared Goff throw 5 interceptions and you're watching the Texans move the ball and you're like, oh, like these were some of the things you were concerned about with Detroit, right? Like, could Jared Goff keep this up? Would this secondary actually be able to hold up against an adequate passing offense? But then they still came back, and as we know what the result of that game was. So, no, I don't think I'm too worried about Detroit overall. And given the way that a grand scheme of things looks in the NFC, again, I mean, at this point right now, it looks like it is Detroit, Philadelphia, and pretty much no one else. So the margin of error that they have is actually it's pretty solid at this point, you know?
Although as a Viking fan, I was sitting there just hoping the Bears could pull an upset, and Moore was open a couple times. I think he threw it right at Moore's feet late in that game. And actually, I don't know how you felt. I thought the Bears were actually going to score a touchdown, and I thought Detroit maybe had enough time to come back. But the way and we see this a lot in football, like once you're on your own one and you don't go 3 and out, and you get that ball to like midfield, the other side of the 50, you just feel like, if you can't stop a team when they're on their one, it just felt like inevitable that they were going to score and at least get a field goal. But as we know, they didn't. So I mean, man, it's frustrating. Minnesota are favored this week to go to 10-2, and it feels like they have no chance to win the division. Which, look, Detroit still has to play Buffalo and San Francisco. We'll see what's left of them at this point. They play Green Bay this week, so it's not, I mean, we're all just giving Detroit the division, and rightfully so, and penciling them into the NFC title game. It's like not inconceivable that Minnesota, maybe this is the homer in me, but it's really not. They're 9-2. They get a chance to go to 10-2. It's not inconceivable that Minnesota is at least going to Detroit week 18 with a chance to play for not only the division but for the 1 seed, which is crazy.
Sure. I think the problem you run into overall is obviously when you're in a position that you need the team to stumble, right, if you're Minnesota. And that's where they find themselves, especially after losing that first one. Like you said, they get the rematch. And I will say, look, for the Packers' perspective, as we're kind of recapping everything that we saw on Thanksgiving really quickly. And by the way, home teams, perfect 3-0 on Thanksgiving. Apparently, that was the first time since 2006, or it should be since the NFL went to 3 games in 2006. It was the second time in which the home team won every single game. 2013 was the last time Lions, Cowboys, Ravens had won all 3. But I think overall, like, I don't really think too much of the Green Bay Packers. I've watched them scuffle a little bit here, but relatively good performance yet again against the Miami Dolphins. I thought they were kind of handed a victory, much like it happens sometimes in injuries manifest the way they do against an opponent against San Francisco, but they controlled that game against Tua and the Dolphins on Thanksgiving evening as well, and you have to give them credit for at least winning by a large deficit against 2 opponents that they clearly are better than. I still don't know what to make of Green Bay, but they've done what they've needed to do each of the last 2 weeks, and at the very least, they look like they're going to be the team that we expected, a competitive playoff team as we get closer to the postseason.
Yeah, and same thought process for the Packers as the Vikings. I mean, how often can you be 9-3? Figure if I told you in the summer, hey, they're going to be 9-3. Oh, got a good chance to win the division. No. Well, probably going to be in second. No. I mean, they're not even close to second, even though they're a game out because they've got 2 division losses. They got head-to-head losses, so they're like 9-3 and solidly in third place. It's just very, very bizarre the pecking order in terms of the Vikings and the Packers. We had Thomas Borgata on the Lombardi line this morning. I was like, and I asked him, I was like, I know how bettors operate. Thanksgiving, recreational money. I'm sure a bunch of people parlayed all the home teams, all the favorites, maybe some parlays with the Chiefs to the money line today. And he goes, "You're absolutely right. We got some parlays tied to the Chiefs with all these home teams. So if you parlayed those home teams yesterday, you did. I know people, especially the recreational better. I'll just take all the favorites. I'll take all the home teams on a parlay. So those are those cash, and if you attach the Chiefs to it, those are still live. And I was thinking maybe that's why they bumped the spread up to the 13.5 today, just because. No, look, it's Thanksgiving weekend. People are home. People want to throw $50-$100 on the game, just have action. And those type of bettors are usually going to take the favorite.
Yep, probably. Let me ask you this. 21-34, 6.5 yards per attempt, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, 221 yards through the air. He never really has to do that much. He's 6-1 still to win MVP. Is Jared Goff's campaign dead?
Dead? No. I think we talked about this with Ward after his loss, where when you have it, and Ward played fine against Georgia Tech, wasn't really on him. But when you have a performance like Goff, if not dead, you just go to the back of the line. Now that team, I mean, it's not impossible if they go 16. If they go 16-1, I think he can overcome the 5 interception game. Again, I don't think he should be favored. I don't know that there's value on the number. But you asked the question: is he dead? I don't think he's dead. You agree or disagree?
No, I think I would agree with that. I also want him to win because I got this ticket on him, but I don't think that's really going to happen. You know what I mean?
Let me ask you: Is Mahomes dead now? I thought if you thought the Chiefs were going to roll today, which I really didn't. I don't like laying big points then. But if you thought the Chiefs were going to roll today, is Mahomes going to have one of these 4 or 5 touchdowns, no interceptions games where now maybe we're overlooking Mahomes? I know the stats aren't great, but they could be the 1 seed. He could pad the stat. No way. I
don't think there's any way that they would realistically. I say that there's no way in the sense of like I I feel like I can trust the media to not do that, right? To not be so short-sighted to look at this season and go, he deserves to win Most Valuable Player given the way this season has gone. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to say 100% no way because the media have done really weird things when it comes to some awards. But I say that in almost like a sense of like, dude, there's no way they could do that, right?
Right.
I think that's
but
point.
I think you think this way too. Is the future's better? Even if you don't bet everything, it's good to have an open mind. Can this guy win? Can that guy win? You kind of play it out and you go through the exercise with each guy.
If you're looking for some action, our friends at First Bet have you covered. Sign up today to unlock exclusive promotions, plus watch and wager on hundreds of exciting horse races every day from across the country and around the world. Sign up at firstbet.com. That's the number one, stbet.com. Use promo code VSiN200 to claim a 20% rebate for your first 60 days, up to $200. Head to firstbet.com today. All right, it is Black Friday. We have plenty of games in college football that have left or that are yet to be a start, including, actually, we're watching one right now, Egg Bowl, Mississippi State up 14-10 over Ole Miss. We'll give you score updates there, give you some best bets for the Black Friday when we return here on Follow the Money.
Got a good thing coming, just wait and see. It's a good.
Matt Brown and Mike Somich are on Ready, Set, Bet as they get you ready to make your bets as the last batch of football games kick off.
What I took away from this is I want to bet against the Patriots when they're behind by 2 scores.
People were going, well, I wonder if this team's actually better than we thought. They're not. They just have enough talent.
Don't miss out on crucial advice for live betting once the game starts, as well as looking ahead to the upcoming action. Tune in to Ready, Set, Bet Saturdays at 7 p.m. and Sundays at 8 p.m. Eastern on VSiN, the sports betting network.
This is Follow the Money on VSiN.
We are back underway here in the second half between the Chiefs and the Raiders. 1st and 10 after a big run to the left side. Has a fresh set of downs for Las Vegas. We'll keep an eye on everything. Pass falls incomplete. 2nd and 10. Raiders currently trailing by 7. But I wanted to update this, Will, really quickly because on such a busy day, a lot of things get forgotten. For example, Mississippi State currently leading by 4, early overall miss. We also have another interesting result potentially taking place in the NBA. The Atlanta Hawks got an early game today against the Cleveland Cavaliers. 3:11 left to go in the fourth. Hawks currently lead 107-96. This is fresh off an outright win against these Cavaliers in Cleveland on Wednesday, if you remember, as about a 9-point underdog out there in the land. So looking to add another big pelt to the living room here, if you will, for the Hawks. Remember, they got an outright win as a 16-point underdog to open cup play in the NBA against the Boston Celtics. That was without Trae Young as a 16-point underdog to winning the game outright. So this has some massive implications when it comes to the NBA Cup because, of course, that win over Boston, it would give them the group essentially here. So we'll keep track of what this final is going to look like. But I wrote about the Hawks today, Will, and this is what I want to bring up at VSiN.com. And as part of it, we'll invoke, of course, our best bets, which are brought to you by G-Bank, the official bank of VSiN. So the Hawks are starting to get healthy. You have Dyson Daniels, you have Jalen Johnson, you have DeAndre Hunter, now Trae Young out there, and there's some really good statistics that would tell you this group is actually playing pretty well together. Those 4 on the floor, you're talking about a defensive rating floating around 112.5, a net rating of about plus 3.9, getting better almost every single day that they play together. This team's now healthy. It was a big issue why they were kind of struggling. So I added the Hawks at plus 210 to make the playoffs. I think this team is really good. When you've got 3 big, long wings like Daniels, Johnson, and Hunter, and if they're going to be available, you're going to be a problem for a lot of teams, and Cleveland has found that out each of these last 2 games. We'll see again if they can hold on with a double-digit lead last 3 minutes, but I thought plus 210 to make the playoffs was a very fair price to make, and I think you can very strongly make a case, too, at minus 190 to qualify for the play-in, but Hawks to make the playoffs plus 210, my best bet here.
Just the top of my head, I was surprised when you said to make the playoffs plus 210. Man, that's a nice number. What is their record? Because I would think of them again. To me, the NBA, especially when football is going on, kind of goes in and out of the clouds. I'm paying attention, but it doesn't have my full attention. I think of the Hawks as a playoff, play-in team. I mean, the East is pretty weak, from what I've been following. So I'm surprised. It looks like you got a good number. I will shop around during a break here and probably try to tail you as Raiders look like they got a first down in there, if nothing else, in field goal range here, down 10-3 with a very important first drive. We talked about this first drive being important. If you don't get points, this could get away from you, but looks like they're in good shape here to at least get some points. But yeah, it's I think that's a nice number on the Hawks. Do you buy the fact that Philly's dead? Is Embiid done? Like, what's the Sixers? Because to me, the Sixers, everyone, what's the saying? You can't look away from a car crash. The Sixers are the one that's fascinating to me.
They are. And before I answer the question, I want to let our audience know best bets are brought to you by G-Bank, the official bank of VSiN. G-Bank Visa Signature Card, your best bet, delivering 1% cash back rewards on eligible gaming transactions and 2% cash back rewards on all other eligible transactions. For more information, head to VSiN.com/Gbank, VSIN.com/Gbank. Subject to credit approval, terms and conditions apply. All right, before we answer the question, what is the wow? You're ahead of me, so I need to know this. What am I about to watch transpire?
Like he had the first down. They gave him a bad spot. I thought, again, I'm doing the show, watching the game at the same time. So it's 4th and short. They, of course, run the predictable run up the middle. It gets stuffed. So the Chiefs are going to take over on their own 28, 30-yard line thereabouts. Maybe I just saw it wrong. It looked like he had the first down, unless, again, the bodies were in a place where I saw it wrong. It looked like he had the first down.
You're talking about the run on third down? Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. All right, yeah. 4th and 1. That is stuffed. Antonio Pierce looks unhappy, and that is going to be a Kansas City Chiefs drive. So, again, to the point of getting this game under, promising drive, again, ends with absolutely nothing there for the Las Vegas Raiders. And that one is not going to be reviewed or overturned because the 4th down run was very clearly short of the sticks. To the point of what we're talking about here is we look at the big picture because we do have NBA Cup action later today. And again, you go to VSiN.com, wrote up some of the more important matchups. We will not see Philadelphia this evening, but it does look like Paul George and Caleb Martin will be back for their next game. Had a report earlier today if that's going to be the case. I always struggle when people ask me that question, like, what is done, right? Like, the bar is so low in the East that they're going to make it into the playoffs. They should make it into the playoffs, no matter no matter how much they scuffle around. I mean, you look at it now, the teams that are ahead of them, Toronto, Charlotte, Detroit, and Chicago, Among them also Brooklyn, Atlanta. You would assume Brooklyn, but they're 9-10. I mean, Brooklyn's going to be the first team to go over their win total. Their win total was 18.5. They already got 9. Yep, they got 9 wins already. It's absolutely insane what they're doing. And we see it every year, right? Team with the lowest win total generally makes its way up, wins a few games. Not the lowest, but one of the lower win totals, and surprises some folks. But the whole point I would say is, yeah, I don't think that they're dead in that they should be able to make it to the playoffs. And I would say this. As somebody out here we have a win total contest out of the Superbook, right? So you bet a win total for every single team in the NBA. I have Chicago over, for example, because I do think Chicago's a little bit better than what the market thought coming into the season. So I expect them to stay inside of the top 10. I would expect Brooklyn to fall out of the top 10. Are you going to be able to continue, if you're the Nets, to win at a pace that would keep Philly out of getting inside of those top 10 seeds? And if Atlanta's as good as I expect, I think they could push for like a top 6 seed. So I would say Brooklyn's the odd man out and Philly makes their way in. But everybody likes to say, well, I'll pay attention later in the season when it starts to matter. Look, we're 17 games into an 82-game schedule. You don't get those 17 games back. And at some point, you run out of runway. Right. And we are getting to the point where I think you're kind of, in video game parlance, right? You're at least sitting up, right, with the controller. You're at least kind of like, all right, let's focus here a little bit, because we're starting to get to a territory where your margin for error shrinks by the day that you continue to take losses.
All right, so I have 2 questions for you. What's going on with Embiid? He's going to be back in 2 weeks, a month, and he's going to be okay as they're replaying that third down. Maybe it wasn't I don't know. Is Embiid? What's Embiid? What's your take on Embiid? That's the first one. And the second one, you could take him in whatever direction you want or whatever order you want. What's the pick scenario for the Sixers? I know in some cases it goes to OKC, because you get to a point where it gets so bad, you say, all right, Cooper Flagg, Dylan Harper, these college kids, let's just call this a bad year and get ready for next year.
It's top 6 protected. So if he finishes in the top 6, they get to keep it. So you'd have to really sell on the season essentially for that to be the case. And it's a unique scenario too for Oklahoma City, because they're also sitting on the Clippers' first round pick. And so it's pretty interesting to see, if I were to tell you, like, hey, of the two, the 76ers in the post-Paul George era in L.A. actually might be the more valuable pick than the Los Angeles Clippers. That's the way the world works. But, no, I think that when you look at this overall, like, Embiid, I don't know. They're not clear about anything. It seems like maybe he's actually injured and they're not being real about what it is. But regardless, if you're going to take a season off, you got your guys under contract. If you were going to do it and protect your top 6 pick and potentially get something, you've already got a really strong young rookie in Jared McCain. I don't think it'd be the worst. Right, and I don't think it'd be the worst idea in the world if you wanted to, as they say, sag for Flag, go on the pooper for Cooper, and try to get something there.
I didn't know what that second one could be taken multiple ways.
Come on.
And Morey is a titles or bust guy. If he says, hey, we could talk playing, I could catch the Raptors. I don't care about catching the Raptors. I care about hanging a banner. The only way I'm going to hang a banner is I just say, you know what? This is a lost year. I know it's only 17 games in, but if I can be bad enough where I take is Pacheco, it looks like, with a big run. He's always kicking the ground when he runs. That might have put him over his rushing prop. The best way to actually win a title, I'm not going to win one this year. I'll just take my lumps. I'll be as bad as possible. Paul George has an injury. Embiid has an injury. Maxey has a fake injury. I'll get my pick, and then Embiid gets the time off, and we regroup next year.
Yeah.
It's not the worst idea.
Let Jared McCain run the whole thing. Let him develop, right?
He might be too good. He might
He's
need
awesome,
what's the expression from Belize, from Breaking Bad? He might need a trip to Belize too.
Yeah, he's absolutely awesome the way that he's been going in. And I'll just say really quickly, we say this all the time, but it's not true. Guys don't make really late pushes for awards. Actually, a lot of the times, narratives get set early, and it's hard to break for them outside of injury. He might be well on his way already to locking up Rookie of the Year. Because he's playing so well and because the narrative is being set that this is the case. All right, you heard it from Will. Pacheco with a really big run here, and the Chiefs are setting up to potentially really open up this hole that the Raiders have found themselves in. And this is the worrisome part about the way this is going here, Will. You don't want Aiden O'Connell in a deficit. You want to be able to control this, play this ball-dominant style of like, all right, let's just run this out. Let's stay close. Let's keep this thing ugly. Who knows? You're so far ahead, it could be 24-3 at this point. But if you make this 17-3 right now, you're going to be in a really tough spot here if you're the Las Vegas Raiders. In-game number currently, as it stands, for 2 seconds, I think we got this at the Chiefs as a 13.5-point favorite, total of 30.5.
You said something interesting. You said you don't want Aiden O'Connell in a deficit, and then you said a bunch of other words. You could have just stopped there. You could have just said you don't want Aiden O'Connell and just stopped it right there. You don't want Aiden O'Connell. That would have been a fine sentence.
What are you talking about? He led the win last Christmas.
He did. He did. He had the Chiefs number.
He did. He knew exactly what was going to go down in that game. All right, 10-3. We'll keep our eye on this, and we have plenty left to get to. In the second hour, when we come back here, we have a lot still of NFL games to get to, so we'll go there. We'll keep our eye on what's happening in college. I'm sweating out San Jose State, late 2.5 with the Spartans here at home against Stanford. They trail 3-0 with about 11 minutes left to go in the second. And Ole Miss taking on Mississippi State right now. It is a little stretch of collar time. 14-10, 9:50 left to go in the second, and Mississippi State is in the red zone. We'll keep an eye on all of that and more when we come back here on Follow the Money.
This Black Friday,